That's the truth. And today, I want you to hear it with every part of your being, because the quality of your life is shaped by the people you allow in it. This isn't about bitterness, it's about survival, growth, self-respect, and rising into the person you know you were meant to be. Here are 6 powerful truths you must never forget. There are moments in life when someone does more than offend you. They undermine the very foundation you stand on. And that kind of wound doesn't heal with apologies or time. It lingers, it echoes, it shapes how you see yourself long after the moment has passed. The person who sabotaged your confidence didn't just make a careless comment or offer tough love. They deliberately targeted the core of your identity, your belief in yourself. And when someone hits you there, they know exactly what they're doing. They know that if they can dim your light, they can control the room. If they can make you hesitate, they can outrun you. If they can make you doubt your voice, they can silence your power. That is intentional harm, strategic and sharp. And you cannot forgive intentional harm and expect it not to repeat itself. Confidence is not a personality trait, it is your internal compass. It tells you where to go, how far you can stretch, what risks you're allowed to take. It directs your ambition. It protects your dreams. When someone attacks your confidence, they are attacking your direction. They are hoping to slow you down or stop you entirely. And people like that rarely act out of concern. They act out of insecurity. They act out of fear that your growth will expose their stagnation. They act out of jealousy that your potential threatens their comfort. And instead of rising with you, they choose to drag you down. They don't tell you you're not good enough because it's true. They tell you because they're terrified. You'll realize that you are. That's why their words stick so deep. They come wrapped in authority, disguised as honesty, but their purpose is to reduce you to a version that benefits them. Let me tell you something important. People who sabotage your confidence once will do it again the moment they feel threatened. They don't attack when you fail, they attack when you shine. They attack when you speak with certainty, when you step into your talent, when you start believing you deserve more. They wait until you're just beginning to rise, because that's when you're the most vulnerable. And if you forgive them too easily, if you let them close again, they won't celebrate your comeback, they'll try to crush it, because your growth ruins the story they've built about you. They've gotten used to seeing you small. They've gotten used to watching you shrink so they can feel taller. And anyone who needs to stand on your shoulders to feel big is not someone who belongs in your life. What they took from you, your confidence, didn't just affect your moment. It affected your choices. It made you hesitate on opportunities you deserved. It made you play safe when you should have leaped. It made you stop dreaming loud because you started fearing your own voice. That's the damage sabotage causes. It shifts your entire life trajectory. And that's why forgiveness in this case is not noble. It's dangerous. You can forgive people who made mistakes. You can forgive people who misunderstood. But you cannot forgive someone who intentionally made you believe you were less than you truly are. Because the next time you rise, and you will rise, they will be waiting to cut you down again. To rebuild your confidence, you must first remove the people who break it. You cannot heal in a room where the wound was created. You cannot reclaim your power in the presence of someone who stole it. And you cannot rediscover your voice while swallowing your truth for the comfort of someone who never cared about you in the first place. When you protect your confidence, you're not being dramatic, you're being strategic. You're choosing yourself. You're protecting your mission, your purpose, your spirit. And that choice will offend the wrong people. Let it. You are not responsible for managing their insecurities. You are responsible for defending your potential. So, walk forward with this understanding. Confidence is not something you earn once. It is something you guard every day. It is your fuel. It is your foundation. It is your lifeline. And anyone who tries to sabotage it, even once, reveals the truth about their heart. You do not need to hate them. You do not need revenge. You only need distance. Because distance is what rebuilds you. Distance is what clears your mind. Distance is what reminds you that you were always enough. You were simply surrounded by people who needed you to forget it. Protect your confidence with everything you have. It is the root of every dream you'll ever chase, and the world will try to take it from you the moment you begin to rise. Guard it fiercely, guard it boldly, guard it without apology. There is a specific kind of pain that only betrayal can create. It doesn't cut like a clean blade, it tears. It shocks you first, then numbs you, then burns long after the moment is gone. And when that betrayal comes from someone you trusted, truly trusted, the damage is deeper than most people will ever admit. We tell ourselves to be understanding, to believe the apology, to take the high road. We tell ourselves everybody makes mistakes. When someone shows you who they are with their actions, especially through betrayal, you must anchor yourself in the truth, not in potential. You cannot keep reimagining who they could be while ignoring who they keep choosing to be. You cannot rebuild a bond with someone who keeps taking a hammer to it. You cannot keep offering trust to someone who treats it like scrap paper. Protecting yourself doesn't make you unkind, it makes you wise. It means you finally learn that loyalty must be reciprocal, not blind. You deserve relationships where trust is honored, guarded, and cherished, not handled with careless hands. So hear this clearly. You do not need to forgive someone who betrayed you twice. You do not need to reopen the door, soften the boundary, or give them one more chance to rewrite the same painful story. Choosing yourself is not unforgiveness. It is liberation. It is clarity. It is maturity. Walk away from anyone who treats your trust like a temporary privilege. Let them lose access to the version of you they never appreciated. And let that loss teach them the lesson you no longer need to. Because once trust is broken twice, the relationship is not damaged, it is done. And you owe it to yourself to close that chapter with strength, dignity, and a heart that finally understands its own worth. There is a moment in every person's life when they finally decide to choose themselves. Choose their peace, their growth, their sanity, their future. And right when that shift begins, someone always appears with guilt wrapped in concern. They make you feel like wanting more is selfish, like protecting your boundaries is disrespectful, like prioritizing your well-being is somehow an offense against them. But understand this clearly. Anyone who makes you feel guilty for choosing yourself is someone who benefited from your self-neglect. They were comfortable when you were overextending, overgiving, and overlooking your own exhaustion. They were comfortable when you made them the center of your world, because it meant they never had to look at how little they were giving in return. The guilt they project isn't about losing you. It's about losing access to the version of you that made their life easier. And the guilt hits hard, doesn't it? Because deep inside, you are a good person. You care deeply, you feel deeply, and you give deeply. So when someone tells you that your growth hurts them, you pause. You question yourself. You stop mid-step. You wonder if you're being too harsh, too distant, too self-focused. But here's the truth. People who genuinely love you will never punish you for becoming healthier, happier, or stronger. They will never make you feel wrong for protecting your peace. The only people who call you selfish for choosing yourself are the ones who were taking advantage of the version of you that didn't. And the moment you recognize that pattern, you reclaim a piece of your power that you didn't even realize you had given away. Choosing yourself is not ego. It is evolution. And evolution threatens the people who depended on your stagnation. They liked you better when you played small, stayed quiet, or lived by rules that kept them comfortable. Your growth forces them to reflect on their own lack of effort. Your boundaries reveal their entitlement. Your independence exposes their dependence on your compliance. So instead of confronting their own shortcomings, they turn the spotlight on you. They say things like, "You've changed, you're different, you don't care about me anymore." Not because those statements are true, but because guilt is the easiest way to pull you back into your old patterns. They're not losing you. They're losing control, and control is what they're really fighting for. The most dangerous thing about guilt is that it disguises itself as love. It feels like obligation, responsibility, loyalty. You start believing that choosing yourself is somehow hurting them. You start shrinking again. You cancel your growth, you silence your needs, you calm your dreams, you return to the version of yourself that kept the peace. But peace bought through self-sacrifice is not peace, it's bondage. When you give up your growth to comfort someone else's insecurities, you become a prisoner to their expectations. You weren't born to play that role. You weren't born to carry the weight of someone else's emotional immaturity. Your life is not a stage built to keep other people comfortable while you suffer behind the curtain. When you finally choose yourself, does it make some people uncomfortable? Yes, but their discomfort is not your responsibility. You are not required to shrink so someone else doesn't have to grow. You are not required to stop evolving because they don't want to examine their own life. Your path is not meant to stay small enough to fit their convenience. Your healing is not a betrayal. Your boundaries are not cruelty. Your transformation is not an attack. And if someone interprets your self-love as abandonment, that says more about their dependence than your intentions. You have every right to rise without apologizing for it. You have every right to walk forward without explaining it. You have every right to prioritize the one person who will live your entire life with you, yourself. So let this truth sit in your chest with strength and fire. Anyone who tries to guilt-trip you for choosing yourself has already shown you they do not value your happiness, only your utility. You owe them nothing, not your silence, not your sacrifice, not your shrinking. Stand firm in your evolution. Stand tall in your self-respect. Stand grounded in your worth. Because your life will expand the moment you stop apologizing for demanding space in it. Never let guilt pull you back into the version of yourself you've outgrown. Choosing yourself is not selfish. It is the beginning of every great chapter you will ever write. There are people in this world who don't wound you with their fists or their actions. They wound you with your own truth. They take the pieces of yourself that you shared with them in trust, in vulnerability, in honesty, and they turn those pieces into weapons. That kind of betrayal isn't loud. It doesn't crash through your life. It slips in quietly, like a whisper that suddenly becomes a storm. When you opened up, you weren't weak. You were human. You gave them access to the most intimate parts of your life, your mistakes, your fears, your dreams, your scars. Vulnerability is a sacred gift. It's the bridge that connects one soul to another. And when someone uses that gift as ammunition against you, they're not just breaking trust. They're violating your humanity. That violation leaves a bruise far deeper than any insult ever could. What makes this kind of cruelty so devastating is that it never comes from strangers. It always comes from people you believed were safe, people you let close, people you trusted enough to let your guard down around. You don't hand your vulnerabilities to just anyone. You hand them to those you think will protect them. So when they choose to weaponize your openness, it shakes the very foundation of your ability to connect. It makes you question if anyone will ever hold your truth gently again. You replay every moment, wondering how you didn't see the signs, how you missed the shift in their eyes, how you could have underestimated their capacity for harm. But the truth is simple. The fault is not in your vulnerability. The fault lies entirely in their character. People who weaponize vulnerability do it because it gives them a sense of power. Not real power, false power, cheap power. Power built on breaking, not lifting. They feel threatened by your strength, so they target the places where you're still healing. They twist your confessions into judgments. They share your private battles when they want attention or control. They remind you of your old wounds when they feel insecure in the present. It's manipulation disguised as familiarity. They think that knowing your past gives them permission to dictate your future. But understand this clearly. Someone who uses what you told them in trust to hurt you is someone who has no respect for the intimacy of human connection. And a person without respect has no place in your life. The most painful part is how it changes you. You start building walls where there used to be doors. You start guarding your emotions like they're fragile glass. You start second-guessing every word you share, every tear you show, every truth you speak, you begin to feel like vulnerability itself is dangerous. But it's not vulnerability that's dangerous. It's sharing it with the wrong person. Someone else's inability to honor your truth should not force you to silence your entire soul. You are not made to be hard. You are not made to be closed. Your openness is not a weakness. It is one of the most powerful things about you. The tragedy is not that you trusted, it's that they were unworthy of that trust. Healing from this kind of hurt requires reclaiming the parts of yourself they try to distort. It means looking at your own reflection and remembering that your story is not something to be ashamed of. It is something you survived, something you grew from, something that shaped you into who you are now. It means acknowledging that their actions were a reflection of their emotional immaturity, not your inadequacy. You don't need revenge. You don't need confrontation. You don't need their validation. What you need is detachment, distance, and the strength to say, you don't get to hold my truth anymore, because your vulnerability deserves to be met with care, loyalty, and love. The kind of love that protects, not weaponizes. So make this promise to yourself: never again allow someone who cannot honor your truth to have access to it. Never again confuse familiarity with safety. Never again let someone convince you that being open is a flaw. The right people will treat your vulnerability like a responsibility, not a tool. They will guard your secrets like they are extensions of their own. They will hold your scars with compassion, not curiosity. And when you meet people like that, you'll realize that your openness was never the problem. Your audience was. Protect your vulnerability fiercely. Give it only to the ones who have earned it. Because when someone weaponizes your truth once, they will do it again. And you deserve people who will lift your soul, not break it. There comes a point in every relationship, friendship, family, partnership, when you look around and realize you've been pouring oceans into someone who couldn't give you a drop back. And that realization hits hard. Because loyalty to you isn't a casual promise. It's a commitment, a backbone, a path you walk with your full heart. You show up, you stay consistent, you stand beside people even when the spotlight fades and the noise disappears. But some people see your loyalty as convenience, not as character. They enjoy being supported, but they never support. They enjoy being understood, but they never understand. They love being prioritized, but they never prioritize you. They want the devotion without the responsibility, the benefits without the effort. And those are the people who will drain you until there's nothing left but exhaustion, disguised as love. The most painful part of one-sided loyalty is how long it takes to see it. You keep telling yourself they're busy, they're stressed, they'll show up eventually. You excuse their absence because you believe so deeply in giving people grace. You replay moments when they were kind, trying to convince yourself they're still that person. You cling to potential instead of reality. But loyalty isn't measured in promises, it's measured in presence. It's measured in who answers the late-night call, who checks on you when you're silent, who notices your pain before you say a word. When someone only shows up when it benefits them, when someone only reaches out when they need something, when someone disappears every time you fall but reappears when they need a safety net, that's not loyalty. That's convenience wearing the mask of connection. And still, you try. You give more. You try to prove your worth through generosity and patience. You tell yourself that being loyal is the right thing to do. But loyalty without reciprocity becomes self-betrayal. You start watering a dead plant, hoping it will bloom simply because you care. You bend your back into impossible shapes, trying to carry a bond that the other person refuses to meet you halfway in. You sacrifice your time, your energy, your emotional well-being, just to uphold something that was never balanced in the first place. Meanwhile, they get used to your effort. They get used to your reliability. They treat your loyalty as an expectation instead of a gift. And the more you give, the more invisible you become. There's a unique loneliness that comes from always being there for someone who never truly sees you. It makes you question your value, your importance, your place in their life. You start wondering if you're asking for too much, when all you want is the same loyalty you offer so effortlessly. But hear this clearly. Wanting reciprocity is not asking for too much. Wanting effort is not being demanding. Wanting to matter is not selfish. You are not unreasonable for expecting loyalty from people who